ಹಲೋ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಹೊಸ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದು ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ? ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಳೆ ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ 2 ಅರೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅವತ್ತು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ನಾ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಲಿಂಕ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಸರ್ ಹೊಸ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈಗ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಆ ಲಿಂಕ್. ನಾ ಹಳೇದ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
So today we are going to discuss about the current affairs news that was related to geography and internal security in the last week. The first topic that we are talking about is Darjeeling rain that led to death of large number of people in the West Bengal region. So if you try to understand first of all that what kind of rain it has and what was its consequences. So it was not due to direct result of rain, but it is due to the consequences of rain that we saw in the landslides, and not one landslides but multiple landslides that were triggered in Darjeeling and the nearby region of Kalimpong, and due to this disaster cut off the communication line with neighboring Sikkim also. Not only that, the only connecting link with the nearby major city of Tista Bajar in Kalimpong that also collapsed, and it is in this context we have to understand that several people have lost their life. If you try to look at the place where this disaster has struck, so on the map of India, you can see this is northeastern part of India. This in the red, this red region is the state of West Bengal, and nearby the Sikkim border, the northern part of West Bengal, we can say you have a small city, a very well known city known for tourism as well, is Darjeeling, and it is in Darjeeling where we have seen the rain caused landslides as such. Now, we have to understand here also that how rain triggers landslides, what kind of geological phenomena or geographical basically events are taking place here. So first of all, if you define landslides, we can simply define it as a downward movement, sudden downward movement, largely under the influence of gravity of rocks, soil and debris. Now, this generally happens because gravity force becomes greater than the slope stability. Generally, if you talk about in any particular mountain, you have a lot of rocks, you have a lot of soil, you have a lot of debris. They remain in a stable state because gravity is trying to pull them, but the stability is sufficient enough that it ensures there is no mass movement occur. But as soon as the gravity increases more than a stability, that causes landslides. Now, what causes gravitational force to suddenly become higher? This is nothing but the lack or weakening of natural glue. Everything that you see along the mountain slope is bound by several factors. These can be the roots of tree, this can be the cohesive forces between the soil molecules as well as the angle of slope also. But whenever you have heavy rainfall, what happens during that time? First of all, due to the water accumulation, the weight of the substances increase, and we know that the gravitational force is directly proportional to mass. So as the weight increases, gravitational force increases, it tries to pull it much more harder. Second, because of the solubility of soil within the rain, frictional forces are reduced and it becomes much more easier for the rocks, soil particles and sediments to flow along the slope as such. And this becomes very common if suppose that the slope of the mountain is relatively steeper in nature, it is not protected or no protective measure had been taken here to ensure its stability, or where you have heavy rainfall. And this is the case in Himalayas, especially if you talk about the southern slope of Himalayas due to the continuous convergence or pushing by the Indian plate, southern slope of Himalaya is very steep, and that is why this is the slope where landslide incidents or related incidents are seen to a greater degree. Now, if talk about also apart from the natural factor, that is rain factor, there are several human triggers also that results into landslide like disaster. These can be unplanned construction on fragile slopes, because whenever you have unplanned construction, you are cutting across the mountain, and when you are cutting across the mountain, if you suppose you are even removing the forest cover, deforestation is one of the results, you can say, of construction. So all this basically induces slope instability, and that causes sudden landslide as such. Plus also, when you are doing construction, especially if it is illegal in nature, especially if it is not taken into consideration the geology of the region, in that case you are obstructing the flow of water. So you have constructed along the drainage system itself, drainage channel itself, and whenever you have sudden heavy rainfall, water has nowhere else to go, so it keeps on accumulating. But as soon as any area water becomes saturated, it cannot be held anymore. Water suddenly gushes in the downward direction. Along with it, it also, because its force, causes large amount of rock and debris to fall itself, and this also result in the this landslide as such. Apart from that, obviously Himalaya, we know that it is a very young mountain, geologically active, seismically active region, and the seismic activity also to some extent is responsible for the landslide as such. Now the question comes that what extent India itself is prone to landslide, and this we can understand by looking at this map again, because entire northern part of India we have the Himalayan mountain system. In the southern and western part of India you have again a high and tall mountain, that is Western Ghat. So both of these regions, largely Himalayas and Western Ghat, are prone to landslides. Overall area wise, if you look, 13% of total area of India is prone to landslides, and this is not limited to a particular state only, but overall 15 states and 4 union territory of India are where you have the spread of this vulnerable region. Northeastern region specifically, because majority of northeastern region is having hill forest topography, and also coincidentally this is a region which receives very heavy amount of rainfall, especially during monsoon season. So 42% of northeastern region is vulnerable to such kind of landslide, especially Meghalaya, you have then Sikkim, then apart from that West Bengal, and then other eastern states as well. Now, what we can do here? So first of all, as we know that most of the time the landslides are a direct consequence of the rainfall. So we need to have a forecasting of rainfall. If you are able to better forecast and predict rainfall, we can be better prepared at least for the landslides. But the challenge here comes that even many times when the IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, which is a nodal agency to forecast or publish weather forecast, it many times predicts heavy rainfall, and it has predicted in this case also because there was a low pressure system developing around Bihar, and low pressure basically sucks up air from all sides, and from especially Bay of Bengal you have moisture laden winds which are coming in this area, and that obviously result into rainfall. But the problem here is that not all rainfall necessarily guarantee landslides and landslide trigger as such. That means even if you are prepared and even if you are able to understand that heavy rainfall is expected here, we cannot say that we have to be aware about landslides, so landslide is going to take place. And also, it's not that immediately during the rainfall, after the rainfall you have landslide. Many times there is a delay, so it becomes difficult to pinpoint when and where exact landslide will occur. So that is the major problem. Even if we are able to forecast and predict rainfall, we cannot predict and forecast landslide as such, and that actually limits our ability to take any preventive and mitigative measure as far as this particular disaster is concerned. Now, obviously, government has taken a lot of steps, and one of the major steps taken here is the implementation of National Landslide Risk Management Strategy. It was unveiled by Government of India somewhere in 2019. It is formulated by two agencies. One is the National Disaster Management Authority, and other is the Geological Survey of India. In this particular program, government has enforced several mechanisms, and these are focused on mapping of vulnerable areas. That means, first of all, we have to analyze that which region are most vulnerable to landslides, where you have heavy rainfall, where you have slope instability, or where protective measures are already not enforced as such. Second, once you do the vulnerability mapping, you then put a focus on high zone or high risk zone, and then you start taking measures there. Early warning system can be deployed in those areas, plus there should be a mountain zone regulations for construction as well. Whenever there is instances of illegal construction, strong stringent actions should be taken against them. Any such kind of activity should be discouraged, and for that matter, not only it's the government but also the local community should be prepared, should be aware, and they should be able to take required measures as such. Now again, early warning system, we talk about what is the current status here. So it's already operational. In the pilot project is there in the 3 states. Kerala, we know last year we had landslides in Wayanad. So Kerala is a region that is very vulnerable. Then you have Sikkim, Uttarakhand. All you can see is the mountainous area, obviously. And this system is based on the IMD rainfall forecast data plus soil data. That means how saturated is the soil, how large is the sediments, what is the probability of landslides and all. It based on that basically calculate the probability of slope failure. The pilot project is still in the trial stage. It is not widely operational because we need more real-time and automated network so that we can have much more comprehensive understanding of the landslide. Once maybe in a couple of years we might be able to do so. So at least if we cannot prevent landslides, we can take measures to mitigate its impact as such. The second topic we have talked about is the supermoon, a topic which was very much in news. It was amplified in media also. So what is the concept of supermoon phenomena and relevance? We'll try to understand. Now, if you look at the definition of supermoon, simply we can understand first of all that you have Earth here and we know that moon is revolving around the Earth. Now, what happens actually is that when moon is orbiting around the Earth, it does not orbit in a perfect circular orbit. That means moon's orbit is not perfectly circular in shape. So due to this, what happens? Moon's orbit, we can say to some extent, is elliptical in nature. That is why at one point of time, moon becomes closest to the sun, to the Earth, and at one point in time, moon becomes farthest from the Earth. So the distance between Earth and moon is not always same. Now we know also that there is a situation of full moon and new moon. When the entire face of moon is visible to us from the Earth, we call it as a full moon, and when the moon is not visible to us at all, we call it as a new moon. So if suppose due to what I can call as configuration of both Earth, moon and sun, because we know that moon is seen due to the Earth's sun's light. So if there is a situation when moon is closest to the Earth, first of all, when moon is closest to the Earth, we call this position as perigee. And if moon is closest to Earth and at the same time we have full moon, that means sun, moon, Earth are also somewhere in the same line, and this is called as syzygy. So we have two terms. We have to understand perigee. What is perigee? When moon is closest to the Earth. And what is syzygy? When sun, moon, Earth are in the same line. So when both of these coincides, what happens to us? What happens if you're looking from the Earth is that moon seems slightly bigger than normal as such. Why? Because first of all, it is full moon. That means full face of moon is visible to you. And second, it is also closest to us in its entire journey. So that is why many times supermoon is also referred as perigee, syzygy. The term supermoon actually was given by Richard Knoll in 1979, and there is no strict astronomical definition that what exactly we can call as supermoon and where exactly moon should be placed in the space with reference to Earth and Sun. But overall, it is a wide understanding that if moon is anywhere within the 90% of perigee distance, that means slightly it can be here and there, but if you have full moon and moon is anywhere between the 90%, around the 90% of perigee distance, then we can call this phenomena as supermoon. Now imagine that you have new moon phenomena. In that case, if in that case you'll not be able to see moon at all. And suppose now you have this full moon phenomena, but at the same time moon is at farthest distance from the Earth. So if you can imagine, throughout the entire journey, moon, when it is closest to Earth, you will see the largest size of moon. When it is farthest from the Earth, you will see the smallest size of moon. And that is why the opposite phenomena is called as micromoon. Micromoon is what? Full moon at the opposite. Supermoon is what? Full moon at the perigee. So that is how simply we can understand this. Now, occurrence and frequency, if you look here annually, typically 3 to 4 supermoons take place every year. And if you talk about 2025, interestingly, in all the next 3 months, October, November, and December, we are expected to see super moon as such. In October case, when the super moon phenomena occurred, the distance from Earth to moon was about 361,459 kilometers. Average distance of the Earth and moon we consider to be somewhere about 384,000 kilometers. So moon almost, we can say, was 20,000 kilometers closer to us than its average distance. Now, because of this, it does not mean that moon looks extremely large or gigantic in size. Its shape is something 14%. Size, we can say it's something about 14% larger than what would you see the smallest moon that you can call as micromoon. If we talk about the illuminati or illumination, it is 30% brighter versus micromoon as such. And it varies depending on the viewing conditions also, to what extent of cloud cover you have or from where you are looking, that means latitude on the Earth and all that. Apparent effect is same as you discussed, 14% to 30% of the change you would see. But this is also because of illusion. Moon size, as you know, that originally or actually its size is not changing. Moon size obviously is constant. It is because its distance with reference to Earth varies. That is why we have this illusion and our brain perceive it to be larger than normal as such. Difference is subtle, needs comparative view also to understand it how big it is. Visual impact is not always dramatic to naked eye. For example, you do not have anything to compare with. You know that someone told you that yes, moon looks slightly smaller when it is at different position and moon looks bigger when it is at different position, but do not have comparison, and your eyes still, moon is so far to us, your eyes cannot make a distinction or what you can call as extreme distinction between them. Now, because we talk about here, you have the earth, and we know that due to the moon's presence, moon exerts gravitational force on the earth, and that causes tides in the ocean. That means the water level in the ocean increases because of moon's gravitational impact. Now imagine when moon is closest to the earth, that means when moon is at perigee position, obviously what will happen in that case? In that case, the gravitational force exerted by moon will be higher than normal, and the high tide that you will see in the ocean will be obviously higher than normal as such. So this is the tidal implications that we have to understand. The tides become higher than normal. The high tides, we can say high tide becomes higher than normal, low tide becomes lower than normal, and that is why many times we call this tide also as a perigee tide. Now imagine that you are having perigee tide and at the same time you are having the effect of sun as well. So many times this both effect this basically start to reinforce each other, creating gigantic waves in the ocean also. Now there are several other misconceptions also that we have to understand. First of all, not all full moons are supermoon. We have discussed that only full moon cannot create supermoon. Full moon has to coincide with the perigee position as such. Second, many times in media, in newspapers, in the TV channels, they exaggerate this, that there is going to be something unique phenomena. But again, I told you, supermoon is something that you cannot differentiate unless and until you know that there is a supermoon. If someone is asked that look at the moon and say some, and if you see some stark difference, generally the answer would be no as such. Effect is modulated by local geography, weather, as we have discussed already, and importance lies more in awareness and scientific communication rather than this just in the changing size of moon. Again, if you revise briefly, perigee, that means the closest orbital point in the Earth-Moon orbit. Apogee referred to the farthest orbital point, referring to the orbital plane of moon. Syzygy referred to alignment of three celestial bodies, in this case sun, moon and earth. Micromoon referred to full moon at apogee. King tide is a term sometimes used when you have the spring tide and perigee tide coinciding together. Perigee tide is when moon is at the perigee. Spring tide is when the sun and moon are exerting gravitational force in the same direction, and thus they are reinforcing each other's gravity. Moon illusion is because of horizontal perception, we see moon to be slightly bigger than normal. The third topic that we have to understand here is cyclone Sakti. Sakti that basically originated in the Arabian Sea. If you look here, the origin point of the cyclone, tropical cyclone, was Arabian Sea in the month of October 2025 itself. More specifically, it originated in the northeastern Arabian Sea as such. Now, first of all, the question comes that why this cyclone is called a Sakti, or why any cyclone is given a particular name. And the answer lies in the fact that you have this World Meteorological Organization, and it has regional center. So in the case of North Indian Ocean, it has asked all the countries who are affected by the cyclones in North Indian Ocean. The total 13 number of countries, as you can see from here, and each of the 13 countries are asked to submit a list of names, 13 names generally. So we'll have 13 by 13, total 169 name of cyclones, list of the cyclones. Now, when a cyclone strikes first, in that case, you will go here. Then again, as next and the subsequent cyclone keep on taking place, you move in column through column. And thus, if you look in this particular context, the Sakti name somewhere you'll find that is given by Sri Lanka. So this is the cyclone that you're talking about. Before Sakti, you had Bengal cyclone. After Sakti, the cyclone will be called as Montha as such, that will be named by Thailand. So each successive cyclone, each cyclone that generates in the Northern Ocean is named as per this list that is prepared. So once this list is exhausted, again same process will be repeated as such. Now, if you look at the track of the cyclone from this particular map, this is somewhere where cyclone originated. This is the coast of Gujarat, as you can see from here. Thar, you have the this region, then you have the Kathiawar Peninsula, Run of Kutch and all that. And then here you have the Arabian countries, more specifically Oman. So the cyclone began somewhere nearby Gujarat, Dwarka region. Dwarka is on the northwestern tip of this Kathiawar Peninsula, if you look at the map here, and then it began to move in the western direction. Why western direction? Because cyclones that generate in the tropical region, they move under the influence of trade winds. Trade winds always move from east to west. So it began to move and finally it reached somewhere 210 kilometers to the south of a place called as Ras Al Had, that is in the Oman, an Arabian country. The trajectory was generally western, but because of the monsoonal effect, we have also seen eastward shift and curvature in the cyclone's trajectory that is seen generally in the monsoon season, because during monsoon season, you know that the wind that becomes prevalent in the Arabian Sea is southwesterly winds. That is why the tropical cyclones also get sometime curve their direction, curve their path and start moving in the northeastern direction, but still its probability of making landfall in India was very, very less. Now, wind speed here was somewhere between 90 to 100 kilometers per hour, with the gust reaching up to 110 kilometers per hour. That means the burst of wind that we are talking about. Sea conditions obviously will be very rough in this situation, and especially fishermen have to take extreme precaution because they are at the highest risk. Even if the cyclone is not making landfall in India, it can significantly damage the boats and cause risk to the life of fishermen who have ventured in the sea in the search of fishes. Now, rainfall here, obviously, we have heavy rainfall recorded across the coast of India, even in South India because of low pressure system. Gujarat coast also has experienced drizzle and all that. Plus, impact of monsoon can be seen here also, because I told you that generally the cyclones move from east to west in the tropical region, but in this case, because monsoon still has not withdrawn from India, westerly winds are still active, and that is why you have seen the curvature in the path of the path or the track of the cyclone. So this is because of this dynamic you have to understand. So somewhere post monsoon window, October, cyclone season peaks in the month of October and November. Now, as we have discussed before, the cyclonic speed here was somewhere between 90 to 100, going all the way up to 110 kilometers per hour. So, if you look at the categorization by Indian Meteorological Department, they categorize cyclone on the basis of different speeds. Wind speed, this wind speed should be maintained for at least a period of 3 minutes. Now, if you look at this particular graph here or particular table here, you can see that this particular cyclone Sakti would be an example of severe cyclonic storm, because as you can see, if the velocity of wind in the cyclone is between 89 to 117 kilometers per hour, 117 kilometers per hour, in that case we call it severe cyclonic storm. Then you have very severe, extremely severe, and super cyclonic storm, which are very rare in nature. The last super cyclonic storm that we have witnessed in India or experienced in India was in year 2020. It was cyclone Amphan as such. So maybe once in a decade you will see super cyclonic storms developing in North Indian Ocean. Generally, majority of cyclones are within these lower category as such. In this case, severe cyclonic storm Sakti. Now, broader implication you try to understand is what we are seeing, that generally in the Bay of Bengal you had more number of cyclones as compared to Arabian Sea, but because of global warming, currently in the last few years we have seen rise in the cyclonic activity as well. So this to some extent we can link with the global warming and climate change. Now, warming sea surface temperature obviously is one of the major factor behind the rise of cyclone. So Arabian Sea also is experiencing warming, and that is why cyclone number has increased. Plus, cyclones also require lower wind shear. Wind shear means the velocity and the direction of wind should not vary a lot when you are going up. And this is the case we are witnessing in the Arabian Sea as well. And these both conditions have led to intensification of cyclones in the Arabian Sea region, which was not seen to that extent earlier. Plus, monsoon effect also we can see from here, as we have discussed before, and thus because the coastal areas are the one where tropical cyclone strike first. Interestingly, if you don't know, I would want to bring to attention the fact that tropical cyclones can only develop over the sea surface. They cannot develop over the land surface. Temperate cyclones can develop both over land and sea. Now, India, because it lies in tropical latitude, that is why it only experiences cyclone that originate over sea, either Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea. So that is why we have to stress for coastal resilience. We need to have early warning system so that the life can be saved. Now, coming to the next topic, we have to discuss about a Finger Lakes region. Finger Lakes region is located in USA around New York region, and it was in news. So first of all, to look at the location and overview, Finger Lake is a region located in the western New York state of United States of America. Overall, these are 11 lakes, kind of longitudinal lakes extending in the north-south direction, and these lakes are of glacial origin. That means it is formed, or these lakes have formed due to the scouring of the sediments by glacier, creation of what we can call as a depression by glacier, and then later on this depression was filled by the melting of glacier as such. Now, this lake are largely located between other large lake that you have called as Lake Ontario, and in the south you have Pennsylvania. So this is how these lakes look like. If you look at this particular map, you can see total 11 number of lakes you have, and out of all these lakes, one of these lakes was in news recently. This lake is called as Lake Seneca. As you can see from here, this is the Lake Seneca, and this lake was in news. Now, why it was in news? So first of all, Seneca Lake, as we can see, Again, if you look at the map here, this is the Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is one of the 5 lakes that make up Great Lakes. If you remember, then there is Lake Huron, then you have Lake Ontario, then you have Lake Michigan, then you have Lake Erie, and then you have Lake Superior. So all these lakes are interconnected, forming boundary between US and Canada to some extent. And to the south of this Lake Ontario, you can see all these longitudinal depressions filled up by water. These are what we call as finger lakes, because they look like a finger, resemble like a finger coming from the palm. Now, Seneca Lake, that was news. So first of all, it is the longest and deepest out of all the 11 lakes that you have here. And this lake is known for unique sound that is called as Seneca gun or Seneca drum. So thundering kind of sound is produced in this particular lake. That is why it also is a source of attraction here. Now, if you try to understand how did this lake form, so I told you the lake is of glacial origin. That means somewhere in the Pleistocene epoch, that is the last glacial period which our Earth has witnessed. During that time, we have seen the southward movement of the glacier. Now, when the glacier began to move in the southward direction, they caused scouring. Scouring means, for example, if you have the plain surface, if glacier begins to move over this plain surface, it will cause a depression because they'll erode. They will cause the this what we call as a scouring of all the sediments, and they'll carry the sediment further. So, kind of gaps will keep on getting created in the path of the lake as such. Now, apart from that, then what happens? Then as the glacial start to slow down, they deposit all the sediments they carry with themselves, and these sediments deposited by glacier is what we call as moraine. So moraine were deposited along the boundary of the lake, and then as the glaciers began to retreat due to the warming phase of the earth, the water due to melting of glacier filled up these trough areas, this depression area, forming these lakes as such. Now, this warming and cooling is something that takes place as per the natural cycle of the earth called as Milankovitch cycle, where earth keeps on shifting between the phase of warming and the phase of cooling. So this is how we can explain the geological origin of the lake. Now, for the local population, these lakes also have humongous significance. First of all, from economic perspective, because of the climate and the availability of fresh water, this region is also known as wine country, because grape cultivation, also we call as viticulture, is one of the major economic activity in this particular area. Not only that, because you can understand you have large number of glacial lakes with their own ecosystem. You have dense forest around this entire area. You have Appalachian mountain slightly if you go to the east of these lakes. So you have very picturesque background, and thus these areas also attract a lot of tourists, not only from within US but also from outside. And these are known for lakeside recreation, picnics. You have mountains, so you have trails through the lake passing through where people are going to hike, do their this different kind of adventurous activities. You have a lot of waterfalls also, because the water is falling from the mountainous areas. And Niagara waterfall is actually located in one of the great lakes that we have discussed, Holmes, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie and Superior. That is how you can remember. Very, very important. One of the largest freshwater ecosystem on the earth is there. And water supply, obviously, because it is a freshwater source, glacial water is freshwater, it also acts as a source of municipal water supply. Example is Kanitilis Lake that you have, one of the finger lakes. It is a source of water for the nearby USA, states of USA. The next topic we have to talk about is related to internal security, where Indian Air Force has first time inducted Tejas Mk1A, that is a fighter aircraft that has been completely developed indigenously by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So first of all, to give you an idea about what is Tejas Mk1A, you must have heard about Tejas Mk. So Mk1A is upgraded form of the flight of the aircraft. It is example of LCA. LCA means Light Combat Aircraft variant, and it is successor to Mk1. Now, if you talk about the recent development that we have seen in this case, so by the end of June 2025, from the Nasik, first Mk1A was expected. And then by September 2025, IF was expected to reach first Mk1A squadron at Null Air Force Station. If you look here, Null Air Force Station is located in Bikaner. Bikaner, as you know, is a city located in the state of western state of Rajasthan. That is where it has been inducted first. And by October 17, 2025, HAL has to unveil first Mk1A at Nasik. So this was the timeline which Hindustan Aeronautics Limited has strictly followed to. Now, not only that, also because we have focused more on defense modernization as well as indigenization. So there is expectation of expansion of production line, because you know that HAL already runs 2 supply lines in the Bengaluru itself, and then 1 supply line or basically production line they have put in the Nashik. Nashik is a city located in Maharashtra as well, and this particular production line will have a capacity of producing 8 units per year. Now there are total, if you try to understand, total HAL has 3 lines. Each of these lines are able to produce 8 aircraft per year. That means if you talk about the annual capacity of HAL, it will be 24 units per year as such. There has been, however, delay issue that Indian Air Force also has many times talked about, and it says that the HAL basically is plagued by this issue, and that is the engine supply. HAL does not develop or do not develop engine by itself. It actually import engine from American company that is called as General Electric. So there has been a humongous, the huge delay in engine supply. That is why HAL also has stated that not able to produce aircrafts and other helicopters in right time. Plus there has been certification setbacks also. So despite that, HAL has shown a promise here that it might be actually be first time will be able to provide and give to Air Force the aircraft at the right time and the required time. Now if you talk about the manufacturing infrastructure, as we have discussed, new HAL production line has been set up, third line in the Nashik itself. Not only that, HAL also has collaborated with several private sector enterprises such as VM Technology, that has been responsible for, that is responsible for supplying of fuselages for aircraft. Engine supply chain already have discussed, HAL imported from General Electric. Engine variant is called as F404 IN20. So deliveries have resumed. Now earlier also due to COVID, entire supply chain was somewhat disrupted. So that is why earlier you had this problem here. Now again GE has resumed its supply, and every month 2 engines are being supplied to the HAL as such. So overall, as far as the procurement by Indian Air Force is concerned, government already has green lighted procurement of 83 Mk1A jet under the current contract. Apart from that, they also have said that earlier also they have given the contracts. Overall, somewhere about 180 Tejas Mk1A fighter jets will be inducted by the Indian Air Force, and this induction will begin already from this fiscal year, and every year between 16 to 24 jets are expected to be inducted by Indian Air Force. In this context also, IAF spokesperson have clearly stated that we are hungry for the jets because we already have retired our older jets, older squadron, and that is why we need to induct as soon as possible, as fast as possible. Now there is upgradation in Tejas Mk1A as well, and you have a sensor system which is upgraded here. It is equipped with AESA radar. Also, it has advanced sensor suite that can play a very important role during the dogfight, during the warfare and all that. Plus, it also has been given a higher degree of protection by what you can call as by this electronic warfare system that has been established inside it. Self protection suites also have been installed. Not only that, very interestingly, if you talk about the weapons capability, the Tejas Mk1 will be able to carry and launch BVR, that is Beyond Visual Range Astra missile. It will be compatible with this also, plus several other advanced weapons such as talk about the BrahMos missile can be integrated with the Tejas Mk1 also. Not only that, range extension also has been carried out here, where air-to-air refueling has been enabled so that the aircraft will not have to land for refueling. It can do that in the air itself and can keep on moving, can keep on taking part in the mission for which it has been designed, and this will ensure that it has extended operational range and hours. Maintainability is also something that was earlier a concern. Now HAL has worked on it and has improved significantly the maintenance of aircraft here, and modular architecture is the basis on which this entire aircraft has been designed. That means entire system you can then disassemble and assemble based on the defect, then you can change it or you can modify it. Now there are certain challenges and risk as well. First of all, supply chain, if you talk about, there has been delay in the engine supply and certification that already have discussed. Delivery schedule was something that HAL was not able to meet, and Indian Air Force chief has criticized many times also about and made a point about this also. So they failed to meet delivery timelines. There have been a lot of backlogs also, because I told you total HAL has to provide about somewhere about 180 aircraft, and this will take a lot of time. Operational transition also is something that we have to concern about, because whenever you have induction of any new aircraft machine, there has to be training, logistic, and the management of spheres as well. This is something where HAL has a poor and abysmal record, but overall we expect that in future it will keep on improving as such. Now this induction also is very important because we just have concluded Operation Sindoor. We just had a brief war with Pakistan as such. And thus, to have a balance and superiority in the sphere of military, we need to have a particular number of squadrons which Air Force is running low on, and thus strategic balancing is required. And if you compare with Pakistan's J-35 talks, because Pakistan is largely trying to import most of its defense goods and equipment from China, so Pakistan is expected to import J-35. So with reference to that aircraft, you also have to look at the capacity and capabilities of Tejas Mk1, and that is why we have upgraded it, so that we can easily tackle any kind of foreign threat. Now, technological evolution also we have seen in the last couple of years, where upgrade has been ensured and the path has been basically we talk about the upgradation path has been such that obsolescence is something that is ignored. That means only those kind of systems which are required in the next generation warfare is installed here. Also, here government has focused on indigenous content. That means more than 70% of the content that you have in Tejas Mk1, it has been developed within India. It is indigenous in nature, and this is also something that we have to be proud about. Now, key indigenous element to talk about here is the manufacturing. Obviously, it is a Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. It is a government of India's company which has been involved here. VIM Technology, that is providing fuselage, that is also a private company, but again an Indian company. Plus, there are various other parts and the services and maintenance where Indian companies are playing a very important role here. Now, this entire development has come on the back of recent phase out of MiG-21, which has been a fighter aircraft used by Indian Air Force for a very, very long period of time. We imported it from Soviet Union, and finally in year 2025, government decided to retire it because there was a lot of accidents we are seeing involving this particular craft as such. So Mk1A induction, the first squadron has been inducted at Null AFS in Bikaner area discussed. Fleet strength is currently 83, plus it will be basically further enhanced to 180, and it will definitely provide a regional air superiority and will act as a force multiplier for the Indian Air Force, especially looking at the threat that we might face from Pakistan and China in future. Now, obviously, there is a plan to upgrade it in future also. For example, there is a proposal of Mk2 that HAL has brought in. Mk2 will be a twin engine aircraft, and this is the path of evolution that they have talked about as well. Now, if you look at a few of the questions from this particular topic that we have discussed, like Cyclone Sakti, we have talked about. Cyclone Sakti was classified as very severe cyclonic storm over the Bay of Bengal. Which of the following correctly explains its formation and dynamic? So, obviously, as you know, that developed due to western disturbance in traction turbines in moisture. No. Formed over warm sea surface more than 28 degrees Celsius with low vertical wind shear, triggered by high pressure anomaly near Andaman Sea, originated from IT seeded subsidence over peninsular India. Now, obviously, the correct answer is warm sea surface. For formation of any cyclone, tropical cyclone, require a sea surface temperature generally higher than 27.5 degrees Celsius, and obviously require low wind shear. Otherwise, if the wind shear is very, very high, cyclone will not be able to sustain itself. It will break out, it will fragment. Second is finger lakes are generally formed by, we have discussed, it is example of glacial lakes. When the glaciers move, they cause erosion, they scour the sediments, create a depression. Later on, when the warming occurs, glaciers melt and the water fills up this depression, forming a lake. So glacial erosion along parallel trough. Why parallel trough? Because as we have discussed, as glacier moves from north to south, they scoured a lot of such kind of troughs and depression in north-south direction, and later they got filled up, and the 11 of this depression collectively is what we call as finger lake. Third is, which of the following anthropogenic factors did not directly contribute to 2025 Darjeeling disaster? Now, again, question is asking about did not directly contribute. Many times we do this mistake and we think that the question is always about it. What is correct? So here, unregulated hill cutting, deforestation on slope, construction of contourments, encroachment near riverbed. So here, did not means construction of contourment, because this is a method that is used to ensure that there is a stability of the hill slope, and landslide always happen when there is instability of hill slope. So construction of contourments will not cause landslide, rather it will provide protection against the landslide as such. So C should be the correct option in this particular regard. Now, if you look at the significance or importance of all these topics from UPSC perspective, the first topic is Darjeeling rainfall and related landslide. This is very important because I have given it 5-star as it is directly related to the topic to your syllabus in geography. You have to talk about disaster management, you have to study about climatology, climate change, you have to study about landslides also, specifically in the case of India in Himalayas, Western Ghat. You have seen questions being asked from this in the early years. So learning of concept, that what is landslide, how did it occur, what kind of geographical and the anthropogenic phenomena can cause it, plus the reasons behind it and how it impacts the life of people is something that you have to be aware about. And thus this topic is relevant for all three stages, I can say, that is prelims, mains and interview. Second is cyclone Sakti. This is also very important because it is directly linked to your syllabus, where you have talked about weather disturbances, weather phenomena, and cyclones are something that you have to study about. So concept plus fact related to cyclone. Also, it is related to climate change because warming of Arabian Sea has intensified cyclones here. Natural disaster related aspect also you have to study. Supermoon, not that important, but you have to be aware about basic information because both from geography perspective as well as science and technology perspective, in prelims question like this can be asked that what is supermoon, or what kind of orientation in the space between sun, moon and earth creates supermoon, or what actually happens in the supermoon. So basic facts you have to be aware about. Finger Lakes, because it is far away from India and USA, it is local geographical feature, and thus I have given it 2 star. Not very important, not have to go and study in depth, do not have to remember the names of all the lakes, but you have to be aware about the glacial lakes. These are the glacial lakes, where they are located. Mapping based questions and facts you can keep in mind here. Tejas MK1, not directly relevant, but this you can use as a pointer when you're writing answers in mains related to defense modernization and indigenization effort. And for Tejas MK1, because first time we're inducting indigenous aircraft in such a large number, some basic facts can be asked from prelims perspective. This is what you have to be aware about. That is all about this particular week of current affairs.